Hey everyone, today I'm going to be talking about plot structure and how to make sure that your story, novel, play, whatever longer piece of writing that you're working on has a good plot structure. Now, everyone has a different writing process. Some people outline meticulously before they even get started. Some people just kind of start writing and see where it goes. There's no right way to approach writing. However, when you are finishing your first draft, you kind of want to make sure that it has a good plot structure. Now, there are different models of structure and different ways you can think about plot structure. Today I'm going to give you 3 of those. The first one is dramatic structure. Most of you have probably heard some variation of this in an English or lit class. It typically applies to plays and films, but it can also apply to novels. And it originates from Aristotle's Poetics, which is a great read if you want to check it out. Now, in the dramatic structure, you first have exposition. This is when the main characters are introduced and the central conflict is presented. The second element that you have is complicating or rising action. This is when the conflict increases, the plot is propelled forward, and the characters are developed. Now, the third element that you have is the climax. This is the turning point. Once this occurs, there's no going back. And these events change the protagonist, ideally. Or they change the fate of the protagonist or the story overall. Then you have falling action. This is when the conflict unravels and the story is beginning to come to a close. And then you have the denouement, which is essentially the resolution. Typically, the protagonist is changed by this point. Usually in a comedy, the protagonist is better off than he or she was at the beginning. In a tragedy, he or she is worse off. Obviously, there are a lot of variations on this. So that's a pretty cut and dry kind of arc. The next plot structure that I'm going to talk about is the hero's journey. Now, this comes from Joseph Campbell. He argues that all myths and really stories have the same structure of the hero's journey. So there are 12 different steps along this hero's journey. First one is ordinary world. This is the regular life of the protagonist before the story begins. The second one is call to adventure. This is where something makes the protagonist begin the adventure. He or she may be presented with a problem or a challenge that needs to be solved. The third step is refusal of the call. This is where the protagonist refuses the call to adventure. The fourth step is the meeting with the mentor. The protagonist will connect with a wiser person who gives advice and wisdom for the adventure. The fifth step is crossing the first threshold. The protagonist leaves his or her regular life behind and encounters the first threshold of the adventure. The sixth step is test allies and enemies. The hero will meet allies and friends as well as enemies, and he or she will be tested as he or she is becoming familiar with the new world. The seventh step is approach. This is where there are obstacles or setbacks that may cause the protagonist to change his or her approach. The eighth step is ordeal. This is where a major crisis will occur. It may include a death of someone that's close to the protagonist. The ninth step is reward, and this is where the protagonist overcomes all the obstacles and achieves his or her goal. The 10th step is the road back, where the protagonist begins the journey back to the ordinary world. The 11th step is Resurection Hero. This is where a final test is given to the protagonist that forces him or her to use the knowledge and the skills that he or she has gained on this journey. And the 12th step is return with Elixir. The hero returns to the ordinary world, but he or she is now a better person and has changed because of what he or she has learned on the adventure. Now, like the dramatic structure, the hero's journey is really just kind of a longer arc. And the last structure that I'm going to talk about is what I like to call the conflict structure. Now, this is where you go through and ask yourself a series of questions about the main conflict. Now, in a story, you're going to have usually several subplots or side conflicts, but then there's one overarching conflict or question throughout the whole story. For example, in the television show Friends, obviously each episode had many different stories going on, but the overall arc in the whole show, I think, was, are Ross and Rachel actually going to end up together? Okay, so the questions that you want to ask. The first one is, who is my main character? You can obviously go as detailed as you want or just really basic. Second, you want to ask, what does my character want? This is the main important part of the conflict. Now, the third question that you want to ask is, what stands in the way for my character from getting what he or she wants? Fourth, you want to ask, how is this going to be resolved? How is the character going to get what she wants or not get what she wants? So this is just a really straightforward way to pinpoint what the central conflict is. Now that you're familiar with these three structures, you want to apply them to your story. Now, whether you do this at the beginning of the writing process or at the end, it doesn't really matter. But you want to pick one of the structures or pick all of them, if it applies, and then go through and ask yourself, what is the exposition? What is the rising action? What is the climax? Just kind of diagram these things in your story. Or if you're looking at the hero's journey, what is the ordinary world? What is the call to adventure? Etc., etc. Or just ask yourself the questions to diagram the main conflict. So these are three structures you can think about when giving your story more of a skeleton. This is one of the lessons that I talk about in my 30-day writing challenge ebook. The 30-day writing challenge is available on Amazon and encourages beginner and advanced writers alike to create or enhance a daily writing habit. And there are 30 exercises and prompts that focus on technique, inspiration, and craft by taking a comprehensive look across multiple genres and forms of writing. So definitely check that out. I will link it below. I'm going to be doing more of these writing tip videos, so if you're interested in seeing more videos like this, definitely subscribe to my channel or like the video. Let me know what you thought about it below. Let me know if you have any questions about plot structure. And thanks for watching. I will see you guys next time.